This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland front of the lane, lob to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media Family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Since we last recorded, the Cavs have gone 2-0. They finished 2024 on another winning streak. The West Coast trip that many thought, hey, potentially there's a loss mixed in there, maybe a schedule loss against a rested Lakers team. The Cavs found a way to get wins in both of those games. Evan Mobley and Kenny Atkinson add to their resumes with some more accolades, and joining me today is my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Peeling back the curtain, we've been talking a lot today. You and I made an appearance on the Dunker Spot podcast with Nikias Duncan earlier today. Should be going live probably tomorrow if I were to guess. We already talked Cavs for 2 hours today. How's one more sound?
Look at you, giving free advertising. First of all, we're at war with the Dunker Spot guys. I'm kidding.
Are we?
I'm kidding. I'm wearing a totally different top now, so it's a different day. Like, this is how dare you? How dare you break the illusion? You're right though. We have been talking a good amount of Cavs. If you guys aren't already checking out the Dunker Spot, you guys should be. Make sure you're subscribing there and checking out kind of the extended conversation. But I'm excited, man. Like, it was a lot of fun to get those wins in Golden State against the Lakers. I think both of those games, there was times where it looked like the Cavs were tested. A turnover filled sloppy first half against the Warriors. You were wondering, okay, is the chaos that the Warriors are causing defensively really giving the Cavs some issues? Are they able to find their footing? They answered the bell in the second half. Lakers kept making pushes. It looked like, potentially a game that they could have lost, and they closed it out, as they've done with so many games this season. I was just incredibly impressed with both of those games.
So my best friend has been in town for the week. He came into town. I threw a little New Year's party, and he came in for it from California, and he hadn't watched any Cavs at all this year. And he's a basketball fan. I was like, oh, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like they're a blast. And then we watched that first half of the Warriors game. I was like, this is not the bill of goods I sold you, brother. This game kind of sucks. But in typical Cavs fashion, this season, like, they just kind of, like, one or two bad quarters just aren't that meaningful to them. Yeah. Like, I got appropriately roasted during that Warriors game for insinuating that their streak of 100-point games in every game this season might be in jeopardy, because that they had that well in hand by middle third quarter, that they were going to eclipse that number. But yeah, it was ugly. But like, it's really cool seeing this team not just figure out their opponents, but also kind of figure out themselves. They don't get caught in these extended mires where things aren't working. And I think that's part of why they are starting the way they've started this season is there's no stretch of play so devastating they can't come back from it, because generally either if their defense is really slipped, their offense tends to be like they're just trading punches instead of getting run away from, or if their offense is messy, their defense is keeping them in the game. And like, even watching that Warriors game, I'm like, this is the worst offensive half I've seen them play all year, and they're tied. Like all the way through that second quarter. So I just think, again, we go back to margin for error. We go back to the way that these guys are able to, play with poise and find their footing, even if they stumble. Like, I felt like that's what the story of that Warriors game was.
It was really impressive, and I think the guy that kind of turned it on in the second half of both of these games was Donovan Mitchell. I thought he was pressing, some of those turnovers and miscues in the first half against the Warriors. I thought, the shot selection wasn't as strong as it could be against the Lakers. And this is something that we've seen throughout the year with Mitchell, where it's, if he does have a stretch where he's pressing a little bit, he seems to be making those adjustments. He seems to kind of have that reflection, whether, it's him himself, which honestly, I think at this point it is, because it just takes, a quick reset and he's locked in again. And, you look at the totals from both games, 26-4 against the Lakers, 23-4 against the Warriors, and his ability to turn it on, to make those adjustments, to not let, a bad quarter turn into a bad game, I think it is just another reason why his season has been so impressive to me. And I think, it's a continued, and this was something we talked about with the dunker spot, but this is, another example of the maturity that he's shown this season. And I continue to be impressed by his leadership and his ability to really just make sure that there is consistently a high floor with this Cavs team on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, man. Donovan has just been incredible these last two games. I mean, that Warriors game, freaking 5 possessions into the second half was over. Yeah. Like, so many times we give him, and even on that pod appearance earlier in the day, we give Donovan credit for being kind of the break glass in case of emergency floor raiser. But, like, he's also thrown quite a few knockout blows this season where it was like, oh, no, the game's over right this second because I decided it is. And, like, and often 100% self-generated. Like, was a single one of those threes to start the second half against Golden State assisted? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
And, like,
maybe one.
When you have this level of ball movement, this level of democratized offense, and you pair that with this kind of elite shot making, it just gets pretty unfair pretty quick. And that's probably the best way to describe what it's like to play the Cavs is unfair. JJ Redick. We're starting to get the longing comments from opposing head coaches weekly. Where JJ's like, you pretty much have to play a perfect game to beat that team. Because I thought the Lakers gave them a pretty good shot. I thought that there was a lot of conversation about Anthony Davis and Jared Allen outplaying him. I don't think that's because AD had a bad game. I thought AD was really, really good in this game. And it's 17 second half points. It's just the Lakers aren't as good. Like they couldn't keep up with the Cavs shooting. They couldn't keep up at the rim, and eventually they got sunk.
Yeah, and this is against two solid defenses. Like the Warriors are still 8th on the season, despite what the Cavs did to them. They're still 8th defensively. The Lakers had been playing like a top 10 defense for December. We knocked them out of that now, but they had been playing a lot better, and I thought that they made a smart gamble in terms of what they're able to do from a roster construction standpoint without giving up a first round pick. They went in on defense. They went in on length. They swapped their, the 6'1" D'Angelo Russell or however tall he is for Dorian Finney-Smith. That's a really long team. I think you felt it at times. They were being very disruptive, especially for a Cavs team that did look a little tired on the second night of a back-to-back. You could tell that it was bothering them at times. But one of the things I find so interesting about how the Cavs approach these defenses, as we see them get tested time and time again this year, they don't run away from the best defenders. And I find that to be an interesting difference between how they approach offense versus the Boston Celtics, where Boston is looking to generate the mismatch. Where's the weakest defender on the court? We're going to get them involved in the action right away. We're going to get a one-on-one situation. And because we have elite talent, we are going to be able to score at a high level against that weaker defender on a consistent basis. Or if you bring help, we got playmakers all over. We are going to get an open shot. We're going to get a good look. The Cavs, I think throughout the season, we have seen them, really go at like a Mikal Bridges, Anthony Davis. Both of these games have that we've played against the Lakers have heavily involved the bigs being involved. We're not running away from those challenges because there is a level of trust in what the Cavs are doing offensively. We are going to run our actions. We think it's a good action. We don't care that you have a strong defender there. And, I think one of the differences that you see there is Boston, when you look at some of their recent struggles, and I think some of it does have to do with fatigue, because, they had such a long year last year. They played in the Olympics. They've been playing this style throughout the year. But when you're playing a lot of isolation basketball, when you're jacking up a ton of threes and you're basically playing mismatch ball, when you run up against an Orlando Magic, even though they're down Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, all that team has is good defenders pretty much. You're not able to play that mismatch basketball. And when you don't have those, actions that are going to get you easier looks and put you in a position to score without, going one-on-one with a good defender, you're going to be tired and you're going to be susceptible to some losses.
Especially in the regular season. Like, I remember one of the best and smartest things teams did against us in the second LeBron era, where it was just switch guards onto LeBron. Because mid-February, LeBron does not want to have to work a mismatch 30 straight possessions. You know, even if you're putting a tasty mismatch on him, it's a lot of work. Like, it just is. You have to bump. You have to use your muscle to and slam into people over and over and over again, or really put the gas on. It's just. And I found a lot of teams in that second LeBron era that did that could kind of close the talent gap just based on LeBron not wanting to do that over and over and over again. And I do think it's a valid point for Boston right now, where that is a big part of what they do.
Yeah, I just think they've taken everything to such an extreme this year, right? Like, they were already a very high isolation team. You look at the frequency, it's increased by 9%, right? Like, you look at the number of threes they're taking, going from 42 a game to 50. Like, I just feel like it's a very tiring style
on pace
of play.
For 62 against Minnesota tonight.
Oh my goodness. Like, I just, and this isn't to say, Boston's not a good team. I just think from a regular season standpoint, they're almost, it's a little too much sugar in the diet, right? Like, it is relying on their elite talent rather than their elite playmaking. Like, that was one of the things that impressed me so much. And I just think when you're playing that kind of consistent mismatch basketball, which is why we were comfortable with that as a defensive approach from the Cavs in both of those games. I just think that it does lead to some wear and tear. It is a very, very
freaking tiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I think that's kind of what the Cavs are doing right now, is their stuff just kind of works. And the other thing about that mismatch basketball is you can do it. And it's not like the Cavs don't. Darius was attacking Walker Kessler a ton against Utah. Evan went after MPJ a few straight possessions.
Yep.
And it's not like they don't do it, but it's just not the first button they push. And I just think it allows you that flexibility of all right, we're in a tight moment now. Let's, rev the engine a little bit. And you just, again, you have a more diversified attack that way.
I think the other part of it is you're less predictable.
It gunks you up, and everyone knows what you're doing.
When you're playing Boston, okay, they're going to try to get a switch onto one of the guards. Like, they're going to go at Donovan, they're going to go at Darius. Like, they, no matter who they're playing, you're going to kind of get that high screen to try to get that switch. I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast, and he was saying, I think the style of play in today's game, I think people are just tired of seeing that high screen, and that's how all the action starts. I'm like, well, no, that's really just Boston. The Knicks will do that too, but that is very much Celtics basketball. And not everybody is generating offense that way, that consistently. Whereas the Cavs, if they are willing to go at everybody, if you're able and willing to run offense and attack, the Lakers' strongest defender in Anthony Davis, and have success doing that, just having real trust in what you are running offensively, it makes you less predictable. And that was one of our biggest things that we talked about of why the offense did not translate to the playoffs in the past. You knew what the Cavs were running. It was predictable. There was good stuff and there were good actions, but how it got generated was very consistent. And now it isn't, right? Like now you do have a multitude of guys that can initiate the offense. They can attack you in a variety of different ways. And, to your point about JJ saying you have to play 48 minutes of perfect basketball to beat the Cavs, they are able to throw a variety of looks at you. Like every single configuration, when you look at their primary ways they play, is a hit. There's the core four, when they're playing with a starting small forward, they have a plus 12.3 net rating. That's amazing. When it is just Garland and Allen, a plus 11.2 net rating. That's amazing. When it's Mitchell and Mobley, plus 15.7. Like every single one of these configurations has a net rating that's above what the Boston Celtics is for the season, I believe. Like that is phenomenal. And, there isn't a chance to catch your breath when you're playing the Cavs. And when they have those guys out there, the only scenarios where there isn't two of those guys out there is foul trouble or they are up 20 in the fourth quarter. Like that is the only time you're not dealing with two of those guys.
Yeah, they're awesome, man. And it was funny. I didn't watch the Lakers game live, but I just didn't need to check my phone. I didn't feel the need to be like, oh, I hope they're doing okay. Because I'm like, yeah, they're probably going to win. I'll catch it. Hung over on the couch in the morning, which I did. And I loved it. That Lakers team had been playing well. They made a big galvanizing trade, and they got good punches in that game. I mean, Reeves drops 36. It's a parade to the free throw line. Almost had 2 straight games of an individual shooting more free throws than the Cavs combined, because Kuminga got that dubious distinction the game prior. Reeves drops 35, AD drops 28 and 13. LeBron gets his numbers as he always does, and it just really, I guess the Lakers game you could say was a little close near the end. They got within shouting distance, but I've just felt like the level of control from this team is pretty damn reliable.
Yeah, I think you watching it after the fact when you knew what the result was probably made you feel a little bit better. I felt good about it, particularly.
I felt like they had to work to win it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And after the third quarter, I think they were up 8 or 9, and I said, let's get this. I was hanging out in game threads because I wasn't able to go out because my butt's still hurting me. But I was sitting there. I was like, let's get this to 16 by the 8-minute mark. Cavs got it to 16 by the 9-minute mark. Like it was, they just kind of had one of those signature Cavs runs that they've had all year, and LA found ways to fight back, and it was a competitive game down the stretch that they had to earn. But they're reliable. They're able to execute at such a high level, even on a night where Darius isn't shooting the ball well. He played about as well as you can on a night you're not shooting the ball well, because the looks he generated, the looks he generated were phenomenal, and he was fantastic against the Warriors. In that first half where almost nobody was playing well, he was the lone guy playing well. And against the Lakers, his playmaking was phenomenal. The 2-man game with him and Jared Allen, that lineup has been looking better and better recently. We talked about how we kind of expected the defensive numbers for that pairing to normalize as the opponent's shooting has. It's come way down. Like it is looking a whole lot better, and I think their chemistry just keeps getting better and better. But
that play, the play to Jarrett, where Jarrett then hit Darius on the cut, and then Darius dove to the lane and then hit the wraparound pass back to Jarrett for the dunk. That was just like basketball nirvana, man. It was so fun.
He also had probably one of the most impressive finishes I've ever seen, where he went through like 3 defenders and finished with a reverse off the glass, which was just absolutely absurd.
I didn't check the box score for this before I watched the game, and I didn't, obviously, because I was watching it on DVR. I didn't watch it. I wasn't like checking it mid game. I couldn't believe he finished. Wild. I couldn't believe he finished 5 of 16. Like my eyes were like, oh, he had a much better game than that. That's not true. And it all comes down to the playmaking. I mean, He, even in a year where he's made really well, I mean, he's not been a 14 assist guy. That was crazy.
Yeah.
14 assists to just 3 turnovers. The Cavs had a 130 offensive rating with him on the floor in that game. Like, do you know how good you have to be playing and how well you have to be helping your teammates out? And when you shoot less than 33% from the field and don't get to the free throw line at all in 32 minutes, that your team is still putting up 130 points for 100 possessions. Like, it's really, I mean, there's no better distinction. I think you said this in the Discord, but there's no bigger distinction between shooting well and playing well than that. Because a lot of times you can pair bad shooting with bad play, or like at the least they just can cancel each other out. He played a great game and just didn't shoot well.
Yeah, but he kept taking the right shots. Like I thought the shot attempts there weren't any that felt forced. It didn't feel like he lost confidence at any point. They just didn't fall, and I think that's exactly how he needs to play. And to contrast that to his worst game of the year in Boston, you could tell that not shooting well kind of changed his decision making. It wasn't as sharp. And one of the things we said after that game is we need him to get to that point where he doesn't allow those poor shooting games to impact his play overall. And I think this is one of those kind of games in the right direction where you're playing against a team that has even more length than the Boston Celtics, that is able to play a very physical style. There was the refs were letting a lot of physicality go both ways, and that's something that has gotten into their head historically. This is kind of the small little stuff, the little indicators that you need to pay attention to throughout a regular season that indicate, hey, maybe there is growth and maturity here. This is the type of growth and maturity that might lead to different results in the playoffs. And as you said, man, like, the playmaking has been phenomenal. These 2 games, 22 assists to 3 turnovers between the Warriors and Lakers.
He was so good against the Warriors, man. I thought he was the only dude who had a pulse that first half. The only guy playing with any verve or sharpness, and like, he really kept them in the game for Donovan to go ruin the game for the Warriors in the second half.
Yeah, it's so much fun to see him take his game to another level. And, you talk about the 130 offensive rating that they had with him on the court this year. It is just wild that for the year, it's 125 with him on the court. And again, without Donovan Mitchell, it's 131 for the season, like per clean the glass. Like that, it just doesn't even make sense. And
there's a reason the team's lost 4 games. We're in January.
We're at the halfway point of the year, and we talked about it on the Dunker Spot, but like Mitchell raising the floor, I don't think it's any coincidence that 2 of our only losses, those games against the Hawks, Mitchell's feeling a little under the weather. Those were like the only games this year where he just flat out wasn't that consistent floor raiser for them, and just shot poorly. Like Garland raises the ceiling. He's been playing at such a high level this year. I'm just really, really encouraged by their ability to continue to find little things to work on throughout the regular season, those little improvements. And you get to this point, like, we still expect some of this to normalize. Like, I still expect the 3-point shooting numbers for the Cavs to come down because, it's just hard to fathom that this can be sustained. But you look at their record at the new year, they are the 4th team to have this type of winning percentage going into the new year. The only other teams that have done it, the 2016 Warriors, who made the finals, if you remember.
Did they win?
No, they didn't.
Oh, wow.
The 96 Bulls, which, 71 team, they did win the championship.
Oh, wow. Well, you would think anyone that good would win the championship, but...
Yeah, you would think. And then the other one is, the Celtics that won. Like, there's only one team that hasn't won a championship, and all 3 prior to the Cavs have made the NBA Finals. This goes back to what we were talking about on the last podcast, but it's time to accept, like, okay, this is a team that their season can end in a championship. We will see, how they're able to position themselves against the Celtics. Obviously Boston's going to be the favorite in that series, but I think that they can start feeling themselves a little bit here, man. Like they should have confidence in what they're doing.
Feeling themselves.
Yeah, like they should
check
have
those post games. They're feeling themselves.
They should have confidence in what they're doing because
Darius Garland was like a WWE, like The Rock cutting a promo with Serena Winters at the end of that one, trying to get JA to the All-Star game.
And JA dropped in ethical hoops, which just warmed my soul.
I about fell out of my chair when JA dropped in ethical hoops. I know we got to knock out an ad read eventually, but damn, if we don't get to JA soon. Oh, I love that man.
Yeah, hey, well, you just stepped all over my ad read, man.
It's
like
okay.
I was trying to set us up here, and then now I can't even do it with tact.
You can't even do your best work.
I can't even do my best work, Carter. And at least I do have Zoom AI Companion to take those notes, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Carter, you are my companion on this here podcast. Go talk about the exploits of Jared Allen.
Well, I just loved, obviously as an amazing game, he goes 12 of 14 from the field, 27 points, 14 boards, 3 blocks, altered many more, had a steal as well. And I just thought it was one of his best games as a finisher. A lot of really good footwork. I feel like his footwork has taken just a little jump this year, where he's getting himself, where he's on the move and he does that one extra pivot to give himself a cleaner jump hook angle or a cleaner floater angle. He closed down the first and second half of that game, and when LA really was challenging them, he was kind of there to go blow for blow. And there's something really demoralizing about Jared Allen runs, because they're so at the rim, where it's just like you're not dying to tough mid-rangers. You're dying to consistent finishing at the rim, and it's just you feel like you can't protect your house, as the opponent. And I thought he was great on AD, even though AD was very, very good in this game. Much like the initial outing in Cleveland, I thought he really made hay against the Lakers in transition. This is a Lakers team that does not like to run back, and JA did a great job of exploiting that for a couple great ones, including one of the best passes I've ever seen Sam Merrill throw. Threw a crazy touch lob pass over the top of AD. I was like, damn, Sam, I didn't think you were going to try, because that's not an easy pass when you're going at full speed on a fast break. But I just feel like you have to continue to give this guy his flowers. I was actually looking it up on Basketball Reference. Currently leads the team in win shares. It's not a stat I'm obsessed with, but a cumulative stat that with a bunch of stat stuffing teammates, and he's right there at the top. Again, I think maybe this year more than any, he's slid a bit more into the background. When it was just him, Evan, and Darius, it was like a core three. They were the three amigos, and then Donovan kind of comes in, and it's the four. And because I think Evan and Darius have elevated so much this year, they're rightfully getting a lot of shine.
Yeah.
And that's great. But I just think it's important that we don't forget that this is probably the best or the second best fourth option in the league. And I just think to have this guy locked up long term on a pretty team friendly deal, it's just really exciting to know that he's just gonna be here. He's still young as hell. Still a great dude who I'm just super fond of off the floor. Again, he dropped in ethical hoops in his post game. And yeah, I thought he was unbelievable in this game, and even was really good against the Warriors on a game where Evan, gets in foul trouble and really never is able to take command of the game.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, continue to highlight that Darius and Evan taking the steps forward that they have isn't possible if Donovan and Jared, as the veterans within the core, weren't willing to sacrifice. We weren't willing to pick their spots a little bit more. And I think it's also really important that we see these Jared Allen games against some of the best centers in the league. Like, he was
over
dominant.
and over and over again, dude. I almost feel like he plays better against these guys than he does against like the dregs of the league.
And I don't think there's a real rhyme or reason. Like, honestly, the only center that I can't really recall Jared having a great game against is Sabonis. Like, I feel like
Sabonis gives him problems.
So punishing with how he plays physically, and maybe it's you're always playing Sacramento on like the end of a West Coast trip or whatever the case may be. But I feel like that's just kind of the one matchup that I don't recall him having a really big game, but. He had that lull where it looked like Jared wasn't having as much of an impact on the game. You're feeling him now. You are feeling him defensively. And you look at what he did against Jokic. You look at what he did against AD. Like, these are premier big men, top 5 player, or in the conversation for being top 5 players. And he is outplaying them, or at least, playing them to a draw and making them
playing
work
those guys to a draw. You're just going to win. Like, if Jared Allen is playing Nick Jokic to a draw in a half, like, that is like the most unreal outcome for you, because these guys aren't going to be held out of the box score. That's just not how it works in this league. But like, if you're matching them or making their possessions ugly or making it, and like, one thing I'll say, because like every time they play a good team or a good big, and we come out and either on Twitter or on this podcast, we go out of our way to praise the way Jared is guarding the Jokic's of the world, the Embiid's of the world. Some troglodyte will always get in our mentions and be like, look at the stat line. He put up 30, Embiid put up 35, 14, and 3. And it's like, okay, sure. They do that against everyone, first and foremost. But what's special is you don't have to send 6 bodies to help. So Tyrese Maxey goes off for 40 on a steady diet of wide open threes, or Jokic gets the Denver blender going, and you're just constantly chasing your tail, trying to keep things contained, because you pretty much can be like, yeah, Jared's got him in single coverage unless he catches it so deep that we have to send a help. Like, that is such a big difference in how you can guard the rest of these guys. And that's why even with these crazy lines from these star players, you go look at the offensive rating, and it's almost never as good as you think it would be for the whole team.
Yeah, and I think one of the teams that this Cavs roster gets compared to is the 2014 Spurs, right? Like, with the way that they democratized the offense, with their ability to trust everyone to hold their own defensively. And one of my favorite things to point at is when Kawhi Leonard won Finals MVP guarding LeBron James. Do you know what LeBron averaged in that series? Do you know what his efficiency was in that series?
Go ahead.
28 points per game. He shot 57% from the field and 52% from 3. Like, that, like, you say 28 a game on 50% from the field and 52% from 3. But Kawhi Leonard, to anybody that watched that series, he made him work.
Has there ever been a cooler moment for, like, if you're like a Spurs fan, than that moment of Kawhi checking in and LeBron shooting free throws, looking back, seeing Kawhi was coming into the game and going, shit.
Just dropping that F-bomb, that F sharp at that point, right?
Yeah, like, that was amazing. What a moment.
You want Jared to be able to, hold his own in these matchups, to make these guys work, to allow guys to have the space, to do the dirty work that allows everyone else to be excellent. And honestly, I love your point about how demoralizing it must feel when Jared's cooking, because, Darius's ability to get through the lane and get him, those shots in close when the defense is scrambling and he's got a smaller guy on him. You're right. Like, there is no, when Tatum hits a couple mid-range shots over Darius, like, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, you just kind of have to shrug and be like, well, good shot, brother.
Yeah, but
it's not like, well, why can't I do anything about this?
if Jarrett happens to miss one of those shots, that feels fortunate. For the most part, he's from a field goal percentage standpoint, he's one of the most efficient finishers in the league. He's going to finish those little hooks around the rim. He's going to finish those dunks over people. Like he is just such a good finisher that like you're not going to rely on variance to change that outcome. Like there is something structurally wrong with your defense that he is consistently getting these looks at the rim, and you are not going to be able to count on the basketball gods to save you. Like that is it's a really demoralizing thing.
Yeah. I think it's one of the Cavs' best features, the way they assault the rim as a team, much more. I feel like even though the shooting has been great, and the shooting is often the thing that extends the leads, that, the Cavaliers are built on 3-point shots, right?
Yep.
Generally. But the other part of the game where the Cavs were up 17 and you're trying to get it to trying to do the old Austin card and get it within 10, and you've got it to 13, and then Darius runs a pick and roll, gets into the teeth of the defense, and just drops it off to Jarrett, who just lays it in 2 feet from the basket. Like, it's like, all your momentum kind of, it's just, like if the Cavaliers and the threes are the haymaker to the face, to go, UFC terms, I feel like Jared Allen layups are like leg kicks. Like they just hurt. They just hurt and make you more tentative and make you want to overreact, and then you open yourself up to those big shots to the top when you just are sick of getting your shins chopped at. Like, and I feel like the Cavs just, again, if nothing else, the motif of this podcast has just been like, there's just kind of no way the Cavs can't win. There's no way that doesn't work for them.
Yeah, and we're going to continue seeing in these, upcoming matchups. We're going to keep looking at each of these games under a microscope and seeing, okay, what are teams able to do to make them uncomfortable, right? Like if I want to pick Knicks against the Warriors, I just didn't think that we got Evan Mobley involved enough, right? Like he only played 24 minutes because we so thoroughly handled them in the second half, but
and a lot of foul trouble. I mean, he was getting dinged up for a lot of these Kuminga drives.
Yeah, that's fair, and I've got thoughts and feelings about that, of course, because I'm me. But I just felt like there's too many times where we weren't getting him those touches, right? Where he's going up against Draymond Green, but we saw him beat that focal point against Draymond Green in the first matchup, right? Like what I really want to see is that the Cavs continue to implement their identity and their style of play, regardless of what the opponent is. I think, the most interesting matchup is going to be Wednesday against Oklahoma City. The Cavs are so good at taking care of the basketball. The Thunder create havoc. They are going to test the Cavs' ability to take care of the basketball. They are going to test the Cavs' ability to get into what they want to run offensively. That is going to be fascinating to me, man. I want to see how that game goes. And, you talk about the shin kicks that the Cavs can deliver offensively. I think it's just as tiring that when you've been exerting all that effort to defend the Cavs and stop them from scoring at this historic rate, you have to go on the other end and you have to deal with Evan Mobley, who just won Eastern Conference Defensive Player of the Month. This is a new award.
I was about to say, it felt new. I didn't remember that one.
Yeah, you didn't remember Dyson Daniels getting it last month?
No, I did not.
Oh, look at you, you casual. I of course, was very tuned in to the award and the accolades of the Great Barrier Thief. But, I think this was absolutely deserved for Evan Mobley. I think he's been playing some of his best basketball. And, the NBA released one of those highlight videos of Mobley's blocks. And the thing that really stuck out to me is Cavs gained possession on every single one. Like every single one. Oh, there was one exception where the ball bounced in front of Sam Merrill and he could have grabbed it and Brooklyn got that possession. But he is directing the ball to his teammates. He is directing it to himself at a horrifying rate. Like, we use stocks as shorthands to combine blocks and steals. Some of his blocks are steals because he is just gathering it himself. He's a freak of nature. And, his offense has taken such a step forward this year, but I really do feel like he has taken a step forward as a defensive anchor. The defensive rating with him without Allen is nuts. It is a 101.9 defensive rating. Those Mitchell and Mobley, the two-man lineups, they're not doing great offensively yet, but oh my God, have they been fantastic defensively.
Yeah, I mean, and Mobley in a lot of ways is the anchor. In the month of December, when he was on the floor, they had a 100.8 defensive rating. I mean, they are, and that's quite a few minutes. I mean, that ain't nothing. He has been just freaking phenomenal on that end. I love your point about keeping the ball in play. I think that's one of the sneaky things that he's great at. I remember in the peak Dwight Howard era that, because his whole thing was he would just spike the ball into the 6th row.
16th row sometimes.
Yeah. By the way, people are going to not remember how good Dwight was at his best. I mean, I feel like people don't understand the degree to which he was ruinous for offensive game plans at his best. But I remember he would always get dinged for that. And there was a stretch where I was like, are people being unfair to him? Is this really is it asking too much to be like, okay, you're already flying 40 feet into the air to block these things. Is it really fair to ask him to have that level of control? And then you watch Mobley and you go, yeah, it was probably fair. Because Mobley just, even on possessions where he has the ability to go swat it really, really hard, he just he's comfortable tipping it. He does a lot of tipping the ball to himself or to others, or just to, misdirect the shot while giving his team a chance. And he's just phenomenal, man. He is just so phenomenal on that end of the floor. I feel like, we got asked about his defense on the dunker spot. And, I think we both agree. This is really kind of the first year where he seems like not only just an elite defender that makes the Cavs defense better, but the guy that is the primary reason more than any other why the defense is great. And by the way, something I did check regarding team defense, because, there's generally been this narrative, not a huge one because things are too good for almost any negative narratives to take root, that the defense is worse than last year, that it's slipped a bit. Like the offense is way better, the defense is a little worse. And the Cavs are lower, season rankings wise. They were 7th last year. They're 8th this year. They're about 2 points better per 100 possessions on defense. So that, the league average defense has gotten better, which, has made it seem like they've had some slippage. They have not had slippage. They're a better team on both ends of the floor.
Yeah. And that also a team that's been missing good defenders for some time, right? Like, Dean Wade, I think now being healthy and playing just at such a great level, like he's been fantastic these last few games.
Best game on the boards he's ever had against, I want to say it was Golden State.
Yeah, like he's been phenomenal. He makes a huge difference. Isaac Okoro's been out. I was happy to see Chris Fedor mention that he was practicing today. That's obviously, a positive step in the right direction. I'd love to have him back for Charlotte or OKC. OKC at the latest. Let's cross our fingers and do whatever we do to bring good vibes into the universe. But like he's missed time. Max Strus is a very good defender, and he's missed the majority of the season. Like I think that there is another gear for this team to get to on the defensive end. But I think you're correct in highlighting that it's been a step forward. And I think one of the differences between a Dwight Howard and an Evan Mobley is, Dwight was 6'9". Mobley's doing this at a legit 7 feet. I don't know if you saw the interview that he did with ESPN today, but he was highlighting a couple of his plays, and the one on the defensive end cracked me up because he's on the other side of the basket, and he was saying how he waited an extra beat to bring the help, and then just came over, timed the block, and got up there on the backboard. No, guys can't do that. They can't wait the extra beat to go underneath the basket, pop up with the ability of his to get so high so quick, and just get that ball on the glass.
Does it feel like the pogo stick stuff is even better than it was in years past? Like I think it's probably more a result of his decisiveness in terms of how quick his jumps are than him actually getting better at it. But man, it just feels really extra unfair how fast he gets off the floor.
And I think, this is another one of those spots where the extra strength comes in, because that natural movement, that ability that we talked about, like, the guy moves like wildlife. Like, it doesn't look like he's exerting energy when he's moving out there, but he's covering so much ground, and he's so athletic with his ability to get up. Now he's not getting bumped off his stride when he's doing this kind of stuff, like whether it's someone boxing out or setting a screen, like, he's able to navigate through that. On the offensive end, he's able to navigate that more with his strength. Like, and I think the other component of him, being controlled, going up there and basically deflecting the ball rather than swatting it, is when you're not exerting all that energy to swat the ball, you're coming down more controlled. Because you're not, doing that. You're not overexerting yourself, throwing your body weight out of shape or whatever. He's just going straight up, plucking that ball out of the air and coming back down in control. And I think, his footwork and just all the details, all the boring little stuff that you might not recognize if you don't watch him on a consistent basis, it's all there. And I think that's what makes him such a special talent.
Yeah, man. He's amazing. Can we talk about Max, who I thought had what I would define as an important game against the Lakers for two reasons. Reason one, he played and I don't think was ever listed on the injury report.
Yep.
I think that's that's a meaningful step forward. The fact that he played both legs of a back-to-back, I think there was a general, like, I almost was like, well, yeah, I guess, at some point he is just going to have to be a normal NBA player, and what he needs are reps and minutes, assuming that, everything's going well structurally, because I do think he's looked pretty rusty to start this year. He had that really good second half in his debut, but I think he's had quite a few ugly minutes where, the jumper just isn't going in. He's shortened a lot, doesn't have his legs under him. And
it's not leaving his hand as consistently.
Yeah, nothing I would define as, concerning, but like, I think he needed a game like this where he goes 4 of 8 from 3, scores 15 points, had another quarter where he makes 3, really was part of their third quarter efforts to kind of take control of the game. 4 assists. I felt like this was the best Evan 2-man game stretch from Max.
There was some really nice playmaking from him.
And yeah, so I felt like this was his first, oh, there's Max. That's the Max that I was kind of like waiting to plug in. I guess I don't actually. I'll let you kind of react to his game before I go to my question.
Yeah, like I was really excited to see that, playing 26 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back, playing 18 against the Warriors. Like, that's a great sign, right? Like, that's showing that, his body's responding well to this. The fact that he looks so good moving around there, I thought was a really great sign. And, you're keeping an eye on those minute totals, right? Like, okay, where is the minute restriction heading? How is this working out? And, 26 minutes, that might be what it's at. Like, even if he is starting, that might be what the minute kind of load is, because Darius is playing 30, right? Donovan's playing 30. Like, you're not going to get a whole lot higher than that. So that was a really encouraging sign. It was also
the first game he closed.
Not only that, it was the first game that he played minutes, period, with the core 4, right? Like, that was something that, when he first was being reintroduced to the lineup, we said we might not see him play a single minute with a core 4 until he's starting again, because, just the way that, the staggering works throughout the rotation throughout the night. He earned those minutes closing, and those minutes went fantastic. They had a plus 33 net rating in those minutes. Like, he was playing really well defensively. You saw that connective playmaking, the effect his gravity has when he's moving around there. Like, all of that's really encouraging. And, I agree with you. I think for his confidence, for, just our confidence in him, like when we see him check in, like, that was a really, really positive sign.
Yeah, I thought he was great. And that does take me to my question for you, which is, how do you play putting him back in the starting lineup if you're Kenny Atkinson? It has been our expectation that Max will get the starting spot back. but they're in a weird. I think it's a bit of a weird spot because again they're playing so well. Kenny has made changes to that small forward this season. Dean starts as the starting three. Then he gets I don't remember if he got hurt or sick, but Isaac stepped in.
I think it's a bit of both, yeah.
Isaac stepped in while he was out and never gave up the spot. And now Isaac's out. And I was wondering, like, when Isaac, like, let's say Isaac comes back like next week or a week and a half from now, is that do you put Isaac back in the starting lineup, or is it time to just rip the Band-Aid off and say, hey, Max is our, he's our guy. He is our starting small forward. He's showing enough. Do you wait for him to have more games like he had against the Lakers to do it? Is it a prove it thing? Like, how do you think you would play it? Because I don't know if there's a clean answer here.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I'm going to try my best to navigate it because I agree with you that there isn't an easy way to play this. Like I look at him playing 26 minutes. I'm like, if he's playing 26 minutes, he could potentially start. And I think you and I have been in agreement that the best way to use Dean is as that third big, right? Like you want to make sure that his minutes are managed. Those have been the minutes where he's been most effective. When you look at the lineup data, yeah, the record is really fantastic when Wade is starting, but that lineup hasn't been as strong as some of the others, right? Like that was one of the things that Kenny pointed to when keeping Isaac in that job when Wade was back was, this lineup's just been a whole lot better than the Wade one.
I do think it's important to note that Wade lineup's gotten really good because it was pretty mediocre for the first like 10, 12 games of the year. They're up to a 9.2 net rating.
Yeah, I was just getting to that. Oh, that's interesting. I was looking at the cleaning the glass.
I'm on NBA.com, so.
Okay, yeah. Cleaning the glass has it at plus 6.5. So, removing the garbage time. So with the Cavs, that's probably a little difficult to delineate and figure out exactly when that starts. But I was actually going to point out that, the offense is coming along with that lineup. We had talked about, I think it was like at 107, it's up to 115. And the defense is held steady there. Like it's starting to click. And, we were wondering before, is there something structurally that's making this lineup not work offensively? Both of us agreed. It's probably something that's going to normalize with more minutes. It is normalizing with more minutes. But I think just in keeping Wade healthy and making, the rotation make the most sense possible, I think him coming off the bench is, probably the best kind of course of action. So the question then becomes Isaac or Max. Personally, I still feel like, Max makes the most sense. We've made that case a million different times, but how I approach
just don't want to Wally Pip the guy.
Yeah, like I think, how I would approach it if I was Kenny Atkinson is, this has been our understanding from the start of the year. Like we were coming into this year with the plan to start Max. We're going to continue to find ways to utilize you kind of with this group. I think what Isaac, Max, Wade, and even Levert have to understand and probably do is any one of them could close. Like depending on what the team needs, depending how they're playing in their minutes, any one of those guys is going to close. And regardless of who's starting, you're all probably playing 22 to 24 minutes on a given night. So you're all going to be playing very similar minutes. We're going to put you in positions to succeed. This is just like a procedural thing. But, this is the tough thing. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see Kenny continue to ride the hot hand with Wade, especially when that lineup's playing well. Maybe he does go back to Isaac and, allow him to have another crack at it before going back to Max, or maybe it's just, hey, Max is off the minute restriction. We're going to go with, what we were planning on doing from the start of the year. I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks. I'm not, two-time coach of the month winner Kenny Atkinson, who won it again for December. So
I'd love a clean sweep. Let's just give them all for every month.
Let's end January with less than 7 losses, and I think he would have, be the front runner to win it again. I think he's probably the front runner to win Coach of the Year. Let's run the board. Let's continue to just make this season our own.
Yeah, I think again it always is going to come down to communication, clear expectation setting, and and making sure everyone kind of knows the score, knows what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about it, and like, the best you can provide any role player is clarity, right? Like these guys, every time you hear from a player in a bad situation, a lot of it's like, I didn't know where I stood, I didn't know what I needed to do, I didn't know what coach thought of me or what coach thought I could bring. I was in the dark. So I think, I trust that Kenny is the kind of dude who can communicate through these kind of things. But yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be hard because Isaac doesn't deserve to lose the starting spot that he has held down at a really, really high level. And by the way, I do have some concerns if we can get into Angst Watch just a little bit.
Okay.
That what's best for Isaac might be to start and play with that group of 5 dudes. He has looked so comfortable since coming into the starting lineup. And I worry a little bit that a different context, he might not look as comfortable, and it might be a little bit harder for him to find his rhythm. Now, what's best for Isaac might not be best for the team, and that might not even be the case. So this is pure just thought experiment stuff. But like, if it's the case, should that factor into your decision making at all? Like, if you're really confident you're going to get good minutes from Max off the bench, and you're a little worried it messes up Isaac's juju, do you account for that? I don't know.
I don't think I would, because that's kind of one of those things where you're going to have to learn, right? Like, even if it makes you uncomfortable, like,
that's
okay,
a great point.
We're going to work with you, but
it's January. Figure it out, Ice.
you like, we're going to work with you. We're going to make a point to continue to find ways to empower you. But like, for me personally, like, when I feel best about Isaac is when he's playing shooting guard, and he's being used as that Bruce Brown screener, and he's causing havoc, and he's playing downhill in those spots. Like, I feel good about his ability to defend up. You talk about the conversations about opponent stat lines and things like that. I got caught in a debate about how good of a job he really did on Paolo Banchero. Did you ever look at the tracking data of how Isaac did in his 22 minutes guarding Paolo?
No.
So he guarded Paolo second most out of anyone on the team, and obviously he didn't shoot well in that series, but Isaac held Paolo to 29% shooting from the field and 14% shooting from 3. Like, he was fantastic. And, that's defending up at a 6'10", very strong player that was shooting the ball very well in that series, right? Like, he's a very, very valuable player, and he's going to need to be part of this team moving forward. Honestly, I think the hard conversations are going to come with guys 9, 10,
that
and
don't
11.
get to play as much or at all, maybe. That is the hardest.
I think the core guys, their minutes are obviously, very well earned.
They ain't going lower.
Continue to get them. Yeah. I think the next 4, honestly, like, I think the next 4 of Max, Isaac, Levert, and Wade, those guys are all going to have to play 20 minutes a night. Like, they all deserve to play 20 minutes a night. And maybe, it's on a night-to-night basis based on the matchup, based on who's playing well, based on, okay, your knee's feeling a little bit sore, either we're going to rest you or you're just not going to get as many minutes tonight, whatever the case may be. Maybe that's what determines whether they get 20 to 26 minutes on a given night.
Yeah.
But those
Sam,
4
Ty,
guys,
and George, it's going to be tougher.
I think that's where you have to have those conversations. That's where you have to, continue to build those guys up and make sure that they're feeling empowered. Because I really do think, that top 8, those are the guys that, when this is everyone's healthy, their minutes have to be prioritized, because I think they all just are kind of at that tier above where they're bringing more than one thing to the table.
Yeah, it is a great problem to have, and again, we still ain't had it because guys keep getting dinged up at the wrong time. Kenny said it. Every time I think I'm about to get to 11, I go back down to 10. And guess who didn't practice today? Sam Merrill, after hurting his ankle against the Lakers. And it feels like those ankles are just going to bother him all year. I mean, certainly no medical professional over here, but he's had a few dust-ups with him over the course of the year so far.
He said it himself in interviews. He said this is something that he's just going to have to manage moving forward.
So, but yeah, so I guess we'll wait to cross that bridge. But yeah, the starting thing is interesting, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it just feels nice to not feel like there's a wrong answer, at least like on paper, because all three of those guys.
The only wrong
Makes
answer is messing up your comms and hurting guys' feelings.
That's what exactly the point I was going to make. On paper, it doesn't look like there's a wrong answer, but it's all about, you know, the messaging, making sure that communication is strong. But I do think the fact that you're in a situation where you're winning at such a high clip, this is such a close locker room, it does seem like, you know, the thing players consistently say is that the communication has been so strong. And also just, you know, the quality of guys in that locker room, right? Like Dean Wade didn't sit there and pout when he came back and Isaac was in that starting job. Like he has been a selfless player his entire time with the Cavs, and he's found a way to make an impact in every single role. Isaac, you know, we're going to see how he adjusts. Max has embraced coming in off the bench. You know, I don't feel like there's been any drop off in terms of how hard he's playing. You know, there's rust and those type of things, but I don't think effort has been in question. So I do think that this is the right environment for it. But, you know, as we continue to find little things to monitor throughout the regular season, that is certainly going to be one of them.
Yeah, it will be. But man, these are all champagne problems, brother. Let's
Truly are.
Happy New Year to all our listeners. Happy New Year to the Cavs. 4 losses, and we are in January. That is banana pancakes, dude.
I am absolutely loving it. I'm having so much fun, you know, discussing this team, thinking back to, you know, where we were at even just a year ago with, you know, Garland and Mobley were out at this time and trying to find a rhythm, and it just much better place. It's been a lot of fun, and I cannot wait for next week, man. I don't want to overlook Dallas because, you know, they still got Kyrie Irving, and, you know, there's talent there. That's still a very good defense. You got to come home and play Charlotte. Potential of a letdown game is, you like to point out, you know, that first game home after a road trip and, you know, against an opponent that's not as strong. That's always a little tricky. But that game against OKC, I cannot wait. And I can't wait for Monday's podcast. We'll be going live at 8:30. Andrew Schleck from The Athletic is joining us. One of my favorite people to listen to. The only podcast that I'll listen to on a weekend. So I'm very, very excited to have Andrew on and preview Cavs and Thunder. That'll be a lot of fun. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.